The house is quiet, but the mind is not. A parent lies awake, turns toward the clock, and sees another hour has passed. The same choices are replayed again. Where that child is gone, what was said, what was hidden, what might happen next. Before long, concern becomes a plan. One more call, one more warning, one more confrontation. Maybe if the words are stronger this time, the outcome will change. Now notice what has happened. Love began with a real burden, but fear has started watching the clock. Fear says you cannot rest while they are making this choice. You must do something again. And because the concern is serious, fear may even borrow the language of faith. It may call pressure discernment. It may call repeated intrusion spiritual authority. It may call the refusal to release an outcome standing in faith. But is repeated intervention always an expression of spiritual authority? Or can fear use religious language to justify control? Do not answer too quickly. We are going to test that question carefully. There are times when love must speak. There are times when safety requires action. There are responsibilities toward a child or dependent that cannot be treated as optional. There are also times when an honest boundary must be established and maintained. Faith is not passivity, and surrender is not neglect. Yet parents are not the only ones lying awake. A spouse may be troubled by choices that are damaging trust. A relative may be worried about someone's safety, health, or faith. One family may be facing reckless decisions. Another may be carrying uncertainty around treatment, communication, money, or participation in the household. These situations are not identical, so they will not all have the same remedy. Sometimes you pray, sometimes you speak, sometimes you act, sometimes you set a boundary, sometimes you wait, sometimes you discover that your own controlling conduct needs repair. But every situation must come under one governing truth. Stand in faith by doing what love requires and surrendering what love cannot command. Say this slowly. I can pray faithfully, act lovingly, set honest boundaries, and release what I cannot command. That is not giving up on your family. That is refusing to take possession of another person's will. Love remains responsible for its own faithfulness, but love cannot become responsible for another person's choices, response, or timetable. You may carry a burden before God. You may not carry another human being by force. The evidence of fear, worry, heavy burdens, and the longing for peace is real. We do not minimize it. But that evidence does not promise a particular family outcome, and it does not authorize us to guarantee what another person will choose. Our confidence must rest somewhere deeper than our ability to produce the ending we desire. So keep one real family situation in mind as we walk together. We are going to examine your responsibility, your motive, your intercession, your covenant confidence, your boundaries, your example, your patient hope, and, where necessary, your repair. We are going to build a practical way to decide whether the next faithful step is to pray, speak, act, set a boundary, wait, or make amends. Tonight's panic does not have to make tomorrow's decision. There is a trustworthy path forward. But first we must identify the line fear keeps trying to erase. What are you truly responsible to do, and what have you never been authorized to control? The line becomes clearer when you separate three things that fear keeps mixing together. First, there is what you are responsible to do. Second, there is what you may lovingly influence. Third, there is what only the other person can choose. Those are not three names for the same authority. Your responsibility concerns your own obedience. You are responsible for the truthfulness of your words, the wisdom of your decisions, the use of your money, the condition of your home, and the way you offer or withdraw your presence and participation. You may be responsible to give care, obtain appropriate help, tell the truth, keep a commitment, protect someone entrusted to you, or establish a necessary limit. These matters belong to your stewardship. Influence reaches farther, but it does not rule. You may counsel, invite, warn, encourage, ask a hard question, and make your position plain. Your patience may influence. Your consistency may influence. Even your refusal to cooperate with destructive conduct may influence. But influence leaves the other person with a response to make. It can present truth. It cannot manufacture agreement. It can open a door. It cannot make another heart walk through. Then there is personal agency, the inward decision another person must make. You cannot repent for them. You cannot believe for them. You cannot make them receive counsel, value a relationship, tell the truth, or choose wisdom. Faith governs your obedience. It does not grant ownership of another person's agency. Now notice, responsibility changes with role, capacity, and immediate risk. Caring for a minor or a dependent person may require decisions and protections that would be inappropriate toward a competent adult. A person entrusted with another's care cannot hide behind the language of surrender and abandon a real duty. But neither can concern for a capable adult be stretched until every disagreement becomes permission to supervise, interrogate, or overrule. Do you see the balance? Respecting agency does not mean doing nothing. Surrender does not require you to tolerate abuse, finance destruction, conceal danger, or keep opening your home and resources to conduct that harms the household. It does not forbid you from seeking appropriate pastoral, medical, legal, emergency, or professional help when immediate safety is at stake. Love may require prompt protective action. Act within your responsibility. Get qualified help appropriate to the situation. Do not use a spiritual phrase to excuse delay where protection is truly yours to pursue. But the opposite error is just as serious. Anxiety does not enlarge your authority. The intensity of your fear cannot turn another adult's conscience into your property. You may govern what you say, what you provide, what you permit in your home, where you place your presence, and what conduct you will participate in. You may not govern another person's inner response simply because their response matters deeply to you. So make a simple inventory. Put 2 columns in your mind. In the first, write, mine to steward, my words, my conduct, my commitments, my resources, my household responsibilities, the protection legitimately entrusted to me, the help I am able and obligated to seek. In the second, write, not mine to command, their conscience, their agreement, their gratitude, their interpretation of my faithfulness, their willingness to change, their timetable, their final choice. This inventory does not remove sorrow. It removes confusion. It gives your concern somewhere honest to stand. You are not helpless merely because you are not sovereign. You still have obedience. You still have prayer, truth, wisdom, courage, boundaries, and a faithful example. What you do not have is the right to seize the place that belongs to another person before God. Let me say it with greater precision. Stand in faith by doing what love requires and surrendering what love cannot command. Do what belongs to your stewardship, then refuse to seize what does not. That is not weak love, that is disciplined love. Yet one more question remains. A call may be yours to make. A warning may be yours to give. A boundary may be yours to set. But a legitimate action can still be carried by an illegitimate motive. Once you know what you may do, you must ask why you are about to do it. Why are you about to do it? That question brings the matter close, because fear and love can perform the same outward action. Both may make a phone call, both may send a message, both may speak a warning. You cannot judge the spirit of an action by its appearance alone. You must examine its motive, its manner, its repetition, and the response it demands. Imagine a parent holding a phone late at night. The message sounds caring. I'm worried about you. Please let me know you're all right. There may be nothing wrong with those words, but perhaps 3 messages have already been sent. Perhaps the concern has already been stated clearly. Now the parent is watching the screen, growing more agitated with every minute of silence. Another message is composed, then another. Soon the request is no longer simply, "Please respond when you can." It becomes, "Answer me now so I can feel better." Now notice the difference. Love seeks the other person's good. Control chiefly seeks relief from the caregiver's distress. Love may speak firmly, but it does not make another person responsible for calming every surge of anxiety. Fear says, "I must make something happen." Love asks, "What faithful thing is actually mine to do?" Before asking whether your action is forceful enough, ask whether it is governed by love or recruited by fear. Here are 4 questions you can use before you press send, make the call, or begin the conversation. First, is this truly my responsibility? Not merely, do I care? Of course you care. Ask whether your role, the person's capacity, and the actual level of risk give you a duty to act. Second, have I already spoken clearly? Repeating the same warning may add pressure without adding truth. Sometimes another sentence is needed. Sometimes the honest answer is, they heard me, they simply did not choose what I wanted. Third, am I serving them or am I soothing myself? That question may sting, but let it do honest work. Am I offering useful truth, practical help, or necessary protection? Or am I trying to transfer my discomfort into their obedience? Fourth, can I remain loving if they refuse? If kindness disappears the moment you do not receive agreement, then the action may have carried an unspoken bargain. I will love you warmly if you give me the response I need. Do not pretend your motives are always perfectly pure. They may be mixed. You can sincerely desire someone's good and still want immediate relief from your own fear. Honesty does not require you to condemn yourself. It requires you to pause long enough to correct your course. Someone says, "But if I do not say anything, I am being negligent." Not necessarily. Silence can be avoidance. It can be punishment. It can be emotional withdrawal. But purposeful restraint is none of those things. Purposeful restraint says, "I have not abandoned you. I am refusing to use unnecessary pressure. I will speak when love requires speech, act when duty requires action, and remain present without demanding control." And if the test exposes controlling conduct, repair it. You may need to say, "My concern was real, but the way I kept pressing you was not right. I was trying to make you relieve my fear. I am sorry." That apology does not surrender truth. It removes manipulation from the way truth is carried. So practice this short rule. Pause, name the fear, identify the duty, and choose the least controlling faithful action. Pause before urgency decides for you. Name the fear plainly. I am afraid they will suffer, or I am afraid their silence means I have failed. Identify the duty that is actually yours. Then choose the faithful action that fulfills that duty without reaching beyond it. Stand in faith by doing what love requires and surrendering what love cannot command. And when another message, another warning, or another intervention would only invade the response that belongs to them, your concern still has somewhere faithful to go. It can move from pressure into intercession. Intercession is where concern can keep loving after pressure has reached its limit. It is not doing nothing. It is bringing a loved one and a specific concern before God while also asking for wisdom about your own conduct. You are not merely praying, "Change them." You are praying, "Help them, guide me, correct me, and show me what faithfulness requires." Now notice what prayer does not require. It does not require the loved one to sit through another interrogation. It does not require another argument, another prediction of disaster, or another demand for an immediate answer. Prayer does not corner a person and call the cornering spiritual care. Intercession carries a person before God without trying to carry that person by force. There are 4 movements in this kind of prayer. First, name the concern honestly. Do not hide behind vague language when your heart is troubled by something specific. Say what you fear. I am concerned about this choice. I am troubled by the danger surrounding this situation. I do not know what this silence means. You are not informing God. You are bringing your fear into the light so it no longer has to disguise itself as authority. Second, ask for help and wisdom. Ask for mercy, protection, truth, courage, and whatever good the situation genuinely needs. But include yourself in the request. Give me wisdom about what to say. Show me whether I should act. Help me recognize the boundary that belongs to me. Keep me from speaking merely to relieve my anxiety. That is important. Intercession does not place the entire family problem on the other side of the relationship. It allows God to deal with the one who is praying too. Third, become quiet enough to receive correction. Some people pray until they have repeated every fear, and then they rise before listening. But prayer may expose that the next faithful step is not another warning. It may reveal a promise you failed to keep, an apology you owe, a limit you have avoided, or a conversation you have been trying to force before the other person is ready. Quietness is not empty. It is the place where urgency stops giving all the instructions. Fourth, release the outcome. Release does not mean you no longer care. It means you refuse to make your peace dependent upon another person's immediate compliance. You can ask boldly without scripting a guaranteed result. You can hope deeply without claiming a revelation God has not given you. You can pray for change without announcing the date, method, or response as though another person's will had become yours to forecast. And be careful how you report your prayers. I have been praying about you may be spoken tenderly, but it may also become indirect leverage. If the real meaning is, you should feel ashamed, you ought to be frightened, or God is on my side, so you must agree. Then prayer language has been recruited by control. Do not turn private intercession into public pressure. Prayer is not a spiritual method of winning an argument. Bring your real situation before God now. You do not need elaborate words. You might pray, God, I bring this person and this concern before you. Give help where help is needed. Give me wisdom for my part. Correct anything in me that fear is governing. Show me the next faithful step. And help me release the choice and timetable that do not belong to me. Then say this plainly, I will carry this person in prayer. I will not carry them by control. Say it again and hear the difference. I will carry this person in prayer. I will not carry them by control. Stand in faith by doing what love requires and surrendering what love cannot command. After you pray, ask one practical question. Does love point toward one clear action, one honest boundary, an apology, patient silence, or appropriate outside help? If so, obey without manipulation. If no action is presently yours, remain prayerful without manufacturing one. Intercession gives restless concern something faithful to do, yet it leaves the outcome where it belongs. But if the ending remains uncertain, what gives you enough confidence to release it and enough peace to rest? The confidence to release an uncertain outcome does not come from knowing what another person will choose. It comes from knowing where you belong, whose character you trust, and what faithfulness requires of you today. Covenant confidence says God is present, God is trustworthy. I am called to walk in love, truth, wisdom, and obedience. It does not say, therefore I possess a contract guaranteeing another person's decision or timetable. Now notice that distinction. Hope may pray for restoration. Hope may expect mercy. Hope may remain open to change even after disappointment. But hope must not claim ownership of a future God has not placed under your command. Another person is not a promised possession. Their response cannot become the condition upon which you decide whether God is faithful or whether you are secure. Covenant confidence steadies your identity and your conduct. It tells you who you are while the answer is still forming. You belong to God before the phone rings, while the conversation remains unresolved, and after the loved one makes a choice you would not have chosen. Your footing is not their compliance. Your footing is the faithful character of God and your present call to obedience. Someone says, but if I stop worrying, am I giving up? No. Worry and love are not the same thing. Anxious monitoring is not proof of devotion. Watchful responsibility pays attention to facts, fulfills duties, responds to genuine risk, and seeks appropriate help when needed. Anxious monitoring keeps checking, imagining, rehearsing, and intruding as though constant alarm could produce safety. One is prepared to act when action belongs to it. The other believes it must remain agitated in order to remain loving. Did you hear that? You do not have to stay frightened to prove that you care. Stand in faith by doing what love requires and surrendering what love cannot command. Peace, then, is not passivity. Peace does not excuse you from a difficult conversation, a necessary decision, or a responsibility genuinely entrusted to you. Peace can make the call when the call is needed. Peace can seek help, tell the truth, keep watch over a real danger, or refuse participation in harmful conduct. But peace acts from clarity. It does not let panic declare every possibility an emergency. Neither is peace denial. You do not have to pretend the choice is harmless, the relationship is healed, or the danger has passed. You may still grieve. You may still feel disappointment in your body. You may wake in the night and feel the old concern rise again. Settled trust and honest sorrow can occupy the same heart. Peace is not emotional numbness. It is the refusal to let distress become your master. And peace is not predictive certainty. Feeling calm does not prove that the situation will change immediately. Rest is not a spiritual receipt promising that your preferred outcome has already been scheduled. The evidence that fear, worry, heavy burdens, and the longing for rest matter deeply confirms the reality of the struggle. It does not establish a guarantee about how another person will respond. We must not turn a real human burden into a promise the burden itself cannot supply. Return now to that parent awake in the quiet house. The child may not yet be safe. The relationship may not yet be restored. The unanswered questions may still be unanswered. The changed posture is not pretense. The parent does not say, nothing is wrong. The parent says, I have prayed, I have examined my responsibility. If a faithful action is mine, I will take it. But I will not appoint panic as the night watchman. That is sober confidence. It leaves room for tears without surrendering to terror. It remains ready for duty without inventing control. It can rest because rest is no longer being held hostage by another person's timetable. Say this quietly. I will be faithful today, and I will not manufacture tomorrow's answer. Again, I will be faithful today, and I will not manufacture tomorrow's answer. Stand in faith by doing what love requires and surrendering what love cannot command. And when that inward confidence becomes visible in family life, it will need form. It will need truthful limits, wise participation, and consequences that protect without punishing. Settled trust must now learn how to become a loving boundary. Settled trust becomes visible when it decides what it will and will not participate in. A boundary is not a claim over another person's conscience. It is a truthful statement about your own conduct, what you will do, permit, fund, host, conceal, or join. A loving boundary controls my participation, not another person's soul. Now notice that definition refuses two errors. Control says, I will use this limit to make you choose what I want. Neglect says, because I cannot control your choice, I have no responsibility at all. Love says, Your choice belongs to you, but my participation belongs to me. I will govern it faithfully. Consider this hypothetical situation. A capable relative repeatedly asks for money after earlier help has sustained the same harmful pattern. A boundary might say, I love you, and I am willing to discuss forms of help I can responsibly offer. I will not provide more money for this. The relative remains free to ask, argue, or refuse other help. Your faithful responsibility is to steward your resources honestly and avoid financing harm. Their financial choices, gratitude, and response remain outside your control. Or consider a hypothetical hostile conversation. You may say, I want a relationship with you, and I am willing to talk about this. I will end the conversation if threats or insults continue, and we can try again when we can speak respectfully. That is not you must feel differently. It is, I will not continue participating under these conditions. Your responsibility is truthful, respectful communication. Their tone, agreement, and willingness to return belong to them. In a hypothetical question about access to the home, love may say, you matter to me, but this conduct will not be permitted in this house. In a hypothetical request to conceal wrongdoing, love may say, I care about you, but I will not lie or hide this for you. In a hypothetical pattern of recurring rescue, love may say, I will not keep removing consequences that follow from choices you are still making. In every case, affection can remain while participation changes. Did you hear that? Continued love does not require continued access to every resource, conversation, rescue, or room. But every refusal is not automatically a wise boundary. Sometimes an ultimatum dresses itself in respectable language. Do this or you will never hear from me again may be less about protection than punishment. Here is the test. Would this limit still be appropriate if the person did not change? If its chief purpose is to frighten them into compliance, it is leverage. If it truthfully governs your participation, protects what has been entrusted to you, and can be maintained without revenge, it may be a boundary. Stand in faith by doing what love requires and surrendering what love cannot command. Respecting agency never requires remaining in danger, enabling harm, or abandoning vulnerable people. When protection is genuinely entrusted to you, faithful action may include restricting access, refusing participation, or seeking appropriate outside assistance. You do not prove love by exposing yourself or others to preventable harm, nor do you call retaliation protection. Consequences should guard people, responsibilities, and integrity, not become instruments for making someone suffer because you feel wounded. And yes, holding a boundary can grieve you. A loved one may say, if you love me, you would help, or you are rejecting me. Do not answer with coldness. Listen for any truth in the accusation. Perhaps your wording was harsh. Perhaps the limit is broader than necessary. Perhaps you use silence to punish. Repair what is yours. But do not erase an appropriate boundary merely because someone dislikes it. You can say, I am not rejecting you. I am changing what I can participate in. I remain willing to love you within this limit. Review the boundary periodically. Is it proportionate to the actual concern? Is it enforceable by actions that are truly yours? Has it been communicated clearly rather than hinted through resentment? Is it governed by love rather than retaliation? If not, revise it. If you have enforced it cruelly, apologize without abandoning what still needs protection. A loving boundary controls my participation, not another person's soul. It neither dominates nor disappears. It tells the truth, protects faithfully, and leaves another person's response with them. Then, after the limit has been spoken, love must still be seen in the ordinary life around it, in the humility, steadiness, and consistent example your family continues to observe. The character that speaks a boundary must also live around that boundary. Otherwise, the words may be correct while the daily atmosphere contradicts them. You can lecture a loved one about faith and still meet every delay with panic. You can demand responsibility while breaking your own promises. You can insist upon respectful speech while using accusation, contempt, or interruption. The message is not only what you say, the message is also what your family repeatedly experiences from you. The life you consistently live may carry truth more faithfully than the demand you urgently repeat. Now notice, this does not mean you become a good example as a technique for producing their change. That is control wearing quieter clothes. I have been patient for 3 weeks. Why have you not changed? Reveals the hidden bargain. Steadiness is not a performance offered in exchange for compliance. You practice honesty because honesty is yours to practice. You keep promises because integrity belongs to your stewardship. You speak respectfully because another person's poor response does not authorize your poor conduct. Stand in faith by doing what love requires and surrendering what love cannot command. Suppose a parent has developed a pattern of sending a barrage of messages whenever a grown child does not respond. The first message asks whether everything is all right. The next repeats the question. Then come warnings, accusations, and statements about how much the parent has sacrificed. Eventually, the child avoids contact because every unanswered message seems to produce a larger emotional demand. The parent recognizes the pattern, what should happen next. Not a long explanation proving that the concern was reasonable, not, I am sorry, but you know how you make me worry. That apology places responsibility for the parent's conduct back upon the child. Repair has 4 movements. Name the conduct. I sent repeated messages after I had already expressed my concern. Acknowledge the impact that put pressure on you and made contact with me feel unsafe or exhausting. Restate the loving intention without turning it into an excuse. I do care about you, but my care did not justify the way I acted. Then change the repeated behavior. Unless there is a genuine reason to believe immediate action is needed, I will send one clear message and allow you time to respond. Did you hear that? Repair is more than feeling sorry. It is truth joined to a changed practice. The parent may still feel anxious after sending one message. The child may not answer quickly. The relationship may not improve on the parent's preferred schedule, but a new discipline is being formed. The parent can pray, attend to actual facts, fulfill any real duty, and resist converting discomfort into repeated pressure. Habit matters because under strain, people often return to what they have practiced. So practice steadiness. Practice honest speech. Practice keeping your word. Practice caring for your own responsibilities instead of making another person manage your emotions. No new habit guarantees family restoration. Discipline is not a lever placed against somebody else's will. But transformed habits keep your profession from being continually contradicted by uncorrected conduct. They make room for trustworthiness to grow, even when trust itself must be rebuilt slowly. Take a personal inventory. What does this loved one repeatedly experience from me? Panic, accusation, rescue that prevents responsibility, withdrawal meant to punish, or do they encounter steadiness, truth, patient love, and a willingness to admit wrong? Do not answer according to your intention alone. Ask what your patterns communicate. If you preach peace but bring turmoil into every conversation, begin there. If you ask for honesty but defend every mistake, begin there. If you expect promises to be kept while casually breaking your own, begin there. The next faithful step may be less dramatic than another confrontation and more demanding than another speech. It may be a month of doing what you said you would do. You cannot choose the response your loved one gives to your example. You can become increasingly trustworthy in their presence. You can let humility soften your strength, let discipline steady your concern, and let repair prove that faith does not require self-righteousness. Stand in faith by doing what love requires and surrendering what love cannot command. But what happens when you live this way and no visible resolution comes quickly? Then consistent example must learn endurance. Love must remain present through the long season without chasing the outcome it still cannot force. Patience is what faithful love looks like when the condition remains unresolved. It is not frozen passivity. It is not pretending that nothing hurts. It is not tolerating danger, abandoning responsibility, or allowing harm without limit. Patience continues doing what is right after urgency has lost permission to direct the relationship. Patient hope stays available to love while refusing to chase an outcome that cannot be forced. Now notice the difference between presence and pursuit. Presence says the appropriate door remains open. I am willing to listen. I am willing to speak truthfully. I am willing to consider responsible help. I am willing to repair what belongs to me. Pursuit says you must talk now. You must let me closer. You must reassure me. You must reconcile before I can bear this uncertainty. One remains available. The other repeatedly presses for access. You may send a fitting invitation and leave room for an answer. You may express love without using affection to demand a conversation. You may make clear that respectful contact is welcome while keeping a necessary boundary in place. You may hope for reconciliation without staging repeated encounters meant to hurry it along. Presence does not vanish. Presence also does not pound upon a door another person is not ready to open. Stand in faith by doing what love requires and surrendering what love cannot command. There will be difficult days. A conversation that seemed promising may end badly. A loved one may return to a troubling choice. Silence may continue longer than you expected. A boundary you hope would be temporary may need to remain because the conditions that made it necessary have not changed. Patient love makes room for the grief of that reality. Do not call every setback failure. Do not assume that sorrow proves you have lost faith. You may grieve and remain steady. You may be disappointed and still refuse manipulation. You may miss someone deeply while declining to participate in what is harmful. Patience does not remove pain from love. It keeps pain from becoming permission to control. And you must change the way you measure faithfulness. If you measure it by instant compliance, you will always be tempted to increase pressure. You will say, I prayed, but they have not changed. I apologized, but they have not returned. I held a boundary, but they still do not understand. But their immediate response was never the measure entrusted to you. Ask instead, have I prayed honestly? Have I taken wise action where action was mine? Have I maintained a truthful boundary without revenge? Has my ordinary conduct agreed with what I profess? Have I repaired the pressure, accusation, or inconsistency that belonged to me? Those questions examine your stewardship. They do not seize theirs. Hope may still be specific. You may pray for renewed communication, safer choices, restored trust, spiritual awakening, responsible participation, or healing within the family. Name what you desire. Ask with sincerity. But let hope remain humble enough to say, I do not control how, when, or whether another person will answer. Hope can face a desired future without announcing possession of it. Return once more to the parent awake at night. The house is still quiet. The concern has not magically disappeared, but the parent no longer mistakes sleepless agitation for spiritual vigilance. The facts have been considered. Any genuine responsibility has been identified. If tomorrow requires one proportionate call, a practical safeguard, or appropriate help, the plan is clear. Nothing more is gained by rehearsing 10 imaginary conversations in the dark. So the parent prays, releases the beloved person again, and sleeps. Sleep now is not neglect. It is surrendered vigilance. It says, I will be ready for tomorrow's duty, but I will not spend tonight pretending anxiety can govern another life. Stand in faith by doing what love requires and surrendering what love cannot command. You have learned the movements. Identify responsibility. Examine motive. Move concern into prayer. Stand in settled confidence. Establish a loving boundary. Live a trustworthy example. Practice patience. And release what is not yours. At the next fearful moment, you will need these truths gathered into one simple rule, something you can pray, speak, and practice before fear takes command. Now we can answer the question that began in the dark. Have you mistaken fear-driven control for spiritual authority? If fear must pressure, monitor, shame, overrule, or demand relief through another person's compliance, it is not faithful authority. Genuine concern does not make control holy. Spiritual language does not make coercion obedient. Faithful authority governs what has actually been entrusted to you. It does not claim command over another person's will. So remember this rule. At the next surge of fear, choose one faithful act, refuse one controlling impulse, and release the outcome again. How do you do that? Pause. Name the fear plainly. Identify the actual responsibility. Pray before urgency speaks for you. Then choose one loving action or one truthful boundary. Release the other person's response. And if control has already appeared in your words or conduct, repair it promptly. Let us walk through it once more. What am I afraid will happen? Name it. What is truly mine to do? Separate duty from imagined authority. Have I prayed for this person and also invited correction for myself? Pray honestly. Does love require me to speak, act, establish a limit, seek appropriate help, or wait? Choose one proportionate step. Am I trying to force agreement, gratitude, change, or timing? Release that demand. Have I pressured, accused, threatened, intruded, or punished? Admit it, apologize, and change the pattern. Stand in faith by doing what love requires and surrendering what love cannot command. If it is appropriate where you are, open your hands. Let that simple posture remind you that release is not abandonment. You are not dropping your responsibilities. You are loosening your grasp on what was never placed under your command. Keep the duty, release the demand. Keep the love. Release the attempt to govern another heart. Now say this aloud. I will pray without manipulating, speak truth without coercing, set boundaries without revenge, live consistently, repair quickly, and leave another person's choice outside my control. Say it again slowly enough to hear your own responsibility in every phrase. I will pray without manipulating, speak truth without coercing, set boundaries without revenge, live consistently, repair quickly, and leave another person's choice outside my control. This must become practice, not merely agreement. Write the governing proposition where you will see it. Stand in faith by doing what love requires and surrendering what love cannot command. Before difficult contact, use the diagnostic. Pause. Name, identify, pray, choose, release, repair. At the end of each day, ask 2 questions. What faithful action did I take? What repair do I need to make? Then make tomorrow's obedience clear and let today end. Do not turn this practice into another method for controlling the result. It trains your conduct. It does not guarantee a loved one's safety, healing, return, or faith. It cannot promise the conversation you want or the timetable you prefer. It can prepare you to remain loving, truthful, watchful, humble, and ready. The parent is still in the quiet room before morning. Not every danger is past. Not every question has an answer. But concern has found its proper place in prayer, in proportionate responsibility, and in open hands. Fear no longer governs the night. Love is ready for the next faithful duty, and the parent rests.